coming. Group projects. Look, I know a lot of students hate group projects. They're a lot of work. You don't always get along with your collaborators. You have to work around the schedules of multiple very busy people. I get it. Collaboration is hard, but it's also really common, whether you go into academia, into industry, nonprofit work, government work. The truth is, a lot of workplaces frequently use collaboration. And being a good collaborator is a skill you can develop, just like developing your skills in content creation and writing. In this video, I talk about strategies for good collaboration. There are 3 big strategies that I recommend to students when they're collaborating, and they're really all about defining things. First, you want to clearly define your expectations for the project and for each other. And this strategy really kind of drives the other strategies. Before you begin the project, you'll want to talk through your expectations for the project in order to see if your collaborators' expectations match your expectations. So things like, how often and how much do you expect to work on the project? What grade are you shooting for? How often do you expect to be in touch with each other? How soon do you expect your collaborators to respond when you communicate with them? How do you expect to communicate with them? Email, text, GChat, carrier pigeon? How do you expect to divide up the work? These may seem like no-brainer questions, but it's important to remember that the expectations you have for the project may be different from the expectations your collaborators have. You might want to do anything you can to get an A, but maybe they're expending more energy on an internship this semester and can only devote so much time each week to the project. Do you expect your collaborators to respond to your emails within a few hours? Well, maybe they log off at night and won't even see your emails until the morning. If you go into a project without clarifying and resolving these expectations, that can cause a lot of unresolved tension and frustration, which can lead to conflict down the road. Or even if it doesn't, it's a lot of stress that could perhaps have been avoided by, you guessed it, clarifying your expectations. Specifically, you should take some time in the beginning of the project to clearly define each collaborator's role and the timeline under which you expect to work. Of course, you have a somewhat predefined timeline because I've given you several small deadlines to meet, but you'll also want to set internal deadlines. So, do you expect to be able to submit the project a whole day before it's due? Or do you expect you'll be working right up to the deadline? That's something you need to work out with your team beforehand. Also, will you and your collaborator take on explicit roles, or will you each take on a little bit of all parts of the project? Is one team member more familiar with Audacity software and wants to take on most of the audio editing? That might be fine, but check with your team first before assuming you'll take on particular tasks. Maybe somebody wants to use this opportunity to learn a lot more about Audacity. You can also split up the tasks pretty equally, but that may take more coordination in terms of when to pass off the project to your collaborators, or it might mean you should work synchronously. Let me give you some advice about splitting up the work. If you really want to divide up specific tasks in your group, that's fine. That's often how it works in workplaces. However, you will need to be clear about those roles in both the end credits of your podcast and in how you talk about the project in your ePortfolio. Did one collaborator write up the script and the other do all of the editing? Make sure you indicate that in the end credits when you talk about the project in the ePortfolio as well. Did all team members do a little bit of everything? Same thing. Include that in the credits and when you talk about it in your ePortfolio. And again, make sure you set up these expectations before you even begin your work. The big common thread here, aside from the fact that you're defining expectations, is communication. In order to set expectations with your team, you have to communicate. And communicating doesn't just mean telling everyone what you want to do. It also means you have to listen. You have to listen to your collaborators and recognize that their experiences and goals may be different from yours, and you and your team have to figure out how to handle that. You have to be willing to come to some sort of a compromise. Of course, there are a few exceptions, like if a team member goes entirely AWOL, or if you experience harassment from a collaborator. Those issues you should bring to me, but pretty much everything else you should handle on your own. Now, to facilitate all of this expectation setting and communicating, one of your mini assignments for this project is to create a collaboration plan with your team. In this 500 to 1,000 word plan, you should address the following questions. How will you divide up the tasks required for the assignment? What are the internal deadlines that you'll set among your team members? How will you communicate with your team members? Email, text, some other means of communicating? If you plan to meet synchronously, when and how will you meet? What happens if you and your collaborators disagree on something? What happens if someone doesn't adhere to the expectations you outline in your collaboration plan? How will you resolve disagreements and conflicts? These issues should all be laid out in the plan. This mini assignment has two purposes. First, it will help you talk through these issues with your collaborators, and two, it will help me see what your plan is so that I can give aid if something goes wrong, or I can offer advice if I sense that something might not work the way you think it's going to. And of course, when you're making this plan, each collaborator has to be upfront about how much time they can commit to the project. If you're setting down guidelines that you don't think will actually work with your schedule, you have to let your collaborators know and talk through what will work for everyone involved. This video is running a little long, but one last thing before I go. One really helpful strategy for both creating this plan and for working on the collaborative project in general is meeting synchronously, or at the same time. Now, I know this is an online class and synchronous meeting is not required, but it really helps to be able to chat in real time with your colleagues, especially in the beginning of a project when you're brainstorming and planning. I'm guessing most of you signed up for an online class because of the convenience it provides you in terms of when you do your work, but I really recommend that you and your team plan to meet synchronously at least once per week during this project, even if you're just text chatting through GChat. It really will make a difference. All right, that's it for now. With the strategies discussed in this video, I have every confidence that you all now have the power to go forth and slay the dragon collaboration. Dr. Clayson would like to apologize for mixing genre metaphors. No dragons were harmed in the filming of this video.